Good afternoon and welcome to October 21st Committee of the Whole meeting, which I will now call to order. Madam Clerk, for the record of this meeting, please show that Mayor Hackson is absent with notice. It takes us to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from council members? Seeing none, the town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaties First Nations and other Indigenous peoples, and on behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. Takes us to item D on our agenda, which is community announcements. Are there any community announcements? Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. And I just wanted to, not so much an announcement, but a reflection on the last weekend. Myself along with the rest of council, we spent a good portion of the weekend at the Health and Active Living Plaza, and it was a monumental moment for this town, and I think special thanks goes out to Mr. Carmazin and his team, but also to all of staff, because I know it was an all-hands-on-deck event, and it was quite a success. I had so much great feedback from the community, and just the look on the faces of kids as they came into the new facility was priceless. And there is a stat that I think I will share that I'm told that we have signed up 974 new memberships for this town, which is an amazing feat. And I know we had, I think it was on Friday night, we had about, I think it was 1,800 folks through just the library that night, and about 2,000 people came in that night. And then Saturday and Sunday was, I think, even busier than Saturday. So anyway, the point is, big success. Staff deserve a lot of the credit, most of the credit, and we just had the easy part of putting up our hands and approving it. So it was a great event, and it's a wonderful addition to our community, and this is what happens when you invest in community. You make great things happen. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and back to you, and feel free. I think you might have some more stats if you want to share.
I do have a few more stats. Over the course of the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we had over 10,000 residents come through the Health and Active Living Plaza. And so I think that is just a incredible testament to the fact that it was such a service that our community was looking for. And as Councillor Crone said, it was the smiles on the faces of everybody that clearly made everything worth it. So other community announcements. Councillor Roy-DiClemente.
I'm going to add to your statistics and advise that not only did we have 10,000 residents come through the doors, 7,000 of those visited the library. So that also tells us that we did a good thing there too.
Councillor Leahy.
Thank you very much, through you, Acting Mayor. The Haunted Halloween Hike is coming up. Halloween is fast approaching, and the hike will take place on Friday, October the 24th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Sharon Temple Museum and Gardens, right here in Sharon, next door to the Civic Center. It's free admission, suitable for all ages, and costumes are strongly encouraged for this family-friendly event. So we look forward to seeing everyone in their fabulous costumes. Thank you.
Any other community announcements? Seeing none, that moves us forward into deputations. We have no deputations at this time. Presentations, we have none at this time. And this takes us to our committee work, which is item G, which is finance, which is myself and the chair. And it's the finance presentation for the 2026 proposed budget to give a preview. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Mr. Marshall.
Just wait for the presentation here. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of committee. I'm here today with Valerie Adema, our Director of Finance and Deputy Treasurer, and Carolyn Brown, our Director of Capital and Development Finance. and we're pleased today to be able to take you through a preview of the 2026 budget submission. If you can go to the next slide, please. So in today's presentation, we're going to provide you with some background information regarding the business plan and budget process, and then we'll provide some overview and highlights of the 4 components of the proposed budget. Next slide, please. So this is our strategic planning framework for the town. And at the start of each term of council, the council goes through a strategic planning exercise where they identify priorities for the town for the term of council. Once that is approved, annually we go through the process of developing business plan objectives that go towards achieving these strategic priorities. And we also go through a process of identifying the resources that are needed to achieve those objectives. And that's done through the budget development process. So once the business plan and budget are approved, these objectives get filtered down into departmental work plans for implementation. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of the timeline for the 2026 business plan and budget. So we started the process back in the summer with working on business plan objectives and identifying budget requirements. We had held several meetings with departmental and extended management staff, and through those meetings, we came up with a set of objectives for council consideration. We then held ward meetings with councillors to review these objectives and to get some initial feedback. Then in September, the set of objectives were presented to committee, and council endorsed those objectives in principle. After that, the mayor directed staff to prepare the 2026 budget based on those objectives and a set of guiding principles that were also endorsed by council. So today, sorry, we're in October. So today is the first opportunity for council, committee, and the public to get an overview of what the proposed 2026 budget will look like. In November, the mayor will table the budget, then committee will go through the budget review process with anticipated adoption of the budget in December of this year. Once the budget is adopted, staff will start working on completing the business plan objectives, and then in the new year, we'll report back on how we did on the 2025 objectives and the financials for year-end 2025. Next slide, please. So the town continues to be in a solid financial position. We remain debt-free, and you'll see later in the presentation that we have the lowest relative taxes in York Region. We have sound reserve balances, and we are doing this and still providing funding for key priority areas, such as operating new facilities, such as the Operations Center and the Health and Active Living Plaza, putting money aside for asset management needs and for community safety. Next slide, please. So taxes from new assessment are used to fund increased operating costs due to growth. So this principle is more commonly known as growth paying for growth. And it's a principle that is included in the town's official plan. So this graph shows our assessment growth from 2018 to 2025, with 2018 being really the last year of our major growth spurt. So you can see that from 2019 to 2023, we still had a fairly healthy assessment growth. 4% to 6% is still considered healthy in terms of assessment. We had a blip in 2021, but over those years, it still remained pretty healthy. But you also see in 2024 and 2025, we had more modest assessment growth. And currently, in 2025, we're tracking at about 1.7%, and we're anticipating we'll be at about 2% by the end of the year. Next slide, please. So one of the guiding principles that we use when developing budgets over the past several years has been to align our tax levy increases on our base or existing programs and services with the rate of inflation. So this graph shows that our tax levy increases on our base programs and services have not kept pace with inflation. So from 2018 to 2025, inflation went up 25.3%, and our increases on our base programs and services went up 11.35%, so less than half of what inflation is. And when that happens, it makes it difficult for us to continue to deliver our existing services. But we have continued to do so and continue to provide quality services. And some of those ways that we've done that are by focusing on modernization, leveraging technology, finding other sources of funding such as grants, and deferring incurring costs such as staffing until absolutely necessary. Next slide, please. So as you saw on the last slide, our tax levy increases on our base programs and services were well below inflation. So this graph shows what the total tax levy increases have been over the past 8 years in comparison with inflation. And total includes our base programs and services plus new and enhanced services. So over the past 8 years, our increases on our base program and adding things such as provisions for our Health and Active Living Plaza and Operations Center, asset management needs, emergency services, and other enhanced programs and services, they've averaged 3.4% per year as an increase. Comparing that to inflation, which has averaged 3.2% over that time period as well. So even including new and enhanced services, our tax increases have been in line with inflation over that period. Next slide, please. So with those tax increases, what did our public receive? So this is just a sample list. This isn't all-inclusive, but we were able to provide 9 new fire and emergency services staff, 7 of those being suppression staff. We were able to carve out $2 million of funding to operate our 2 new facilities, and that includes adding 12 East Gwillimbury staff, 5 library staff, and about 150 part-time staff to operate the Health and Active Living Plaza. We were able to add $645,000 worth of dedicated contributions to fund the future repair and replacement of our assets. And we were able to provide a number of frontline technical and support staff to improve our services. We've been able to do that along with maintaining our existing services, and all this in line with inflation. So this also doesn't include our capital projects that we've added over the years to help provide services to our public. Next slide, please. So I think you're familiar with this slide. This is a slide showing relative taxes in York Region for a typical 2-story detached dwelling. And once again, it shows that East Gwillimbury has the lowest relative taxes between our municipalities in York Region. And that gap has increased. So the gap between the next lowest municipality in East Gwillimbury has increased from $708 to $742. And the gap between the average in York Region and East Gwillimbury has increased from $1,142 to $1,146. So this chart also shows what a 1% tax increase generates in terms of actual dollars between each municipality. And you can see a 1% increase generates different dollar values throughout each municipality. So that makes it difficult to compare tax levy increases if you're just looking at percentages. So, next slide, please. So this slide looks at two of the largest annual costs, municipal costs that a property owner would incur, and that's property taxes and water billing. And when you look at those two components combined amongst the municipalities in York Region, East Gwillimbury, once again, is the lowest for the rest of the municipalities. Next slide, please. So going back, this hasn't always been the case that East Gwillimbury has been the lowest. So if you move back to 2014, and 2014 is the first year that the data on the relative taxes on a two-story detached dwelling was available, you can see that East Gwillimbury was actually second lowest. They weren't the lowest, and that gap was $380. So you go forward to 2024, it's actually flipped, and East Gwillimbury is the lowest by $631, which is a swing of $1,011. And if you compare it to the average municipality in York Region, the gap has increased by $729. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, in September, Council endorsed a set of guiding principles for staff to help develop the 2026 budget. So these are the same set of principles that have been used in the past several years to develop the budget. And so you'll see the list of priorities here, or of guiding principles here, along with how how the proposed budget satisfies each principle. We'll be able to provide more detail for you, and you'll see more details of that when you receive your budget binders and we go through the budget committee meetings. Next slide, please. So based on the mayor's direction, staff are finalizing the 2026 budget submission, and currently the four components of the budget totaled $83.5 million in expenditures. So the next part of the presentation will provide an overview of each component of the budget, and before I pass it on to Ms. Adema to go through the tax-supported operating program, I'm happy to stop here and answer any questions.
Councillor Leahy.
Thank you very much. Through you, Acting Mayor Johns. I have two basic questions with regard to understanding all of the numbers that you presented at this high level. My first question is with regard to the second to last slide that you just showed, based on the principles saying that it was the second point on your principles, that growth costs are going to be offset by assessment growth. When you started your presentation, you presented a chart of the net assessment growth, which shows that it's plummeted towards 2025. It was much, much higher, and now it's down to around 2%, if I remember correctly, the figure that you mentioned. So how is growth costs going to be offset by assessment growth if the net assessment growth has plummeted so dramatically?
So through you, Mr. Chair. So one, I would comment and say that I don't think the assessment growth has plummeted dramatically. I would say that we had an extremely high assessment growth in the first couple of years from that 2018 because we had that huge growth spurt. So for most municipalities, a 1% to 2% assessment growth is normal. So we've actually gone down into kind of the normal range for the last couple of years. As I mentioned before, 4 to 6% is still pretty high, and most municipalities would love to have 4 or 6% assessment growth. And so I know when I was having my meetings with the area treasurers, and I said our growth was 4%, I think, oh man, oh, that's great. So it is, I would say that we had like extremely high assessment growth, so now we're kind of normalizing. The second point about how we've offset it, Ms. Adema has a slide showing how our assessment costs are offsetting the cost of growth there. So when she goes through her presentation, part of the presentation, you'll see that offset.
Thank you very much. And through you, Acting Mayor Johns, I have one more general high-level question. Every presentation in the budget process, we are presented with slides that compare us as East Gwillimbury with other municipalities, and it's a municipal comparison charts, graphs that you have given us on multiple slides. And I have received actually complaints about that and the way that it's presented. And I recall in the first question I had when I was considering my first budget when I joined council, I asked you why is the identity of the other municipalities redacted? And I understand that you are comparing homes based on an average price range for homes. However, as a councillor and as I have learned over the years, I really need to have all of the details in order to make accurate decisions for the municipality. So if the municipality is redacting the identities of the other municipalities in those graph charts, how are we supposed to understand the comparison that you are making, and if we are actually making an accurate comparison of apples to apples versus the services that are being provided and other factors that go into that comparison when you're only comparing on one factor, which is the price of a home? So why is the identity of the other municipalities, why are they being redacted? And why can I, as a councillor, and the public not be made aware of truly how we are comparing ourselves to other municipalities when their identity is not known? Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if I understand fully the question that you've asked. I'll try to answer part of it, though. We have I wouldn't say redact, we've removed the identities of the municipalities just for that reason that you explained, that municipalities were saying that, why are you putting our names out here? So I think the point of the slide is to say that a typical house in East Gwillimbury pays lower taxes than other municipalities. So I think that's the point, and whether you know the names of the other municipalities or not, it doesn't really matter, because the point is we have the lowest out of all of them. So I'm not sure about the other part of your question, but that's what...
Thank you, through you, Acting Mayor Johns. Well, it's important to me, and my job as a councillor is to answer to the taxpayers of East Gwillimbury and to advocate for the taxpayers of East Gwillimbury. And so why it's important to me is because we fluctuate in population, and you have provided us with a chart in terms of how much 1% is equal to, according to those municipalities that we don't know the identity of. But, you know, my job is not to be concerned whether or not other municipalities are embarrassed by having higher property taxes than East Gwillimbury. My job is to understand what those services are and what the different factors are that affect those other municipalities that may provide reasons for their higher property tax rates. So I would like to ask if we can have full disclosure of the identities of those other municipalities that we are comparing ourselves to, so that I can understand and make decisions according to all of the information at hand.
I was just going to say, is there any other questions or comments from committee? Councillor Carruthers?
Every year when this comes up, I mention that the BMA study is publicly available, and you can look it up and you can look at all the different comparators on there. It's quite an eye-opening study, and they put it out every year. And so I would highly suggest, if you're interested in who the different municipalities are. You just look up the studies and it's right there. So I thank finance for always putting on where that's coming from, because at one point it wasn't clear. And now I do enjoy opening it up every year when the new study comes out, so we know exactly how we compare to everyone else. And it includes all kinds of comparisons that are very good. Now, my question is a process one. You're talking about the mayor tabling the budget in November. Now, we know that she's not here, she's away. I'm wondering how the mayor tables a budget when she's not here, and if we are still under a strong mayor's budget if we don't have a mayor who's actually performing her duties.
Mr. Marshall, if that's yours or anybody else's, I would open the floor to whoever wishes to respond.
Oh, so through you, Mr. Chair, I'll take a stab at it and then people can pile in after. But so the legislation says that the mayor just has to provide the budget. So the mayor doesn't have to be in person for that. Last year, the mayor provided direction for staff to provide that budget, and we did that. And the same is happening this year. So the mayor doesn't have to be present to table the budget, just has to provide direction, and that budget has to be provided to council.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Councillor Leahy, I know that you had 3 questions previously. I just opened before we come back to you. Is there, Councillor Roy-DiClemente?
The process, thank you. The process of the mayor presenting a budget to us and not being present is nonsensical to me. And I don't understand how we can be proceeding under that provision and not simply in the way that we used to do, which was as a budget committee, staff prepare a budget, let's be open about this, staff prepare a budget, present it to budget committee, and we address that. Whether the mayor wants to come back and make changes or amend that, that's fine, or challenge it. But at this point, we need to be very open that the mayor is not here, she's not presenting a budget, staff are. And as committee of council, as budget committee, we're going to work through it just as we always have.
So I'm not sure that there was a question. I'll pause momentarily.
Perhaps staff could comment on that. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
I'll pause briefly to see if any staff wish to. Okay, CAO Valchik, if you'd like to comment.
Mr. Chair, all I can say is we're following the process as prescribed by the province, and it's our understanding that the method in which we are doing this is compliant with the legislative requirements.
Councillor Leahy.
Thank you very much. Through you, Acting Mayor Johns, to perhaps our CAO. So I'd like to go back to my question about the redaction of the identities of the other municipalities, because although my fellow councillor has presented her perspective about how easy it is for me to just look up these studies and look up these charts, I would like to request that in able to do my job as an elected official, as a councillor, I need to be provided with those studies and that information that this is based on. And I still believe in the benefit of transparency, and for the sake of transparency, any member of the public should not be expected to have to do research on which studies this information is based on, which you are basing multiple charts on. And so I would like to request that the information be provided on exactly which studies this has been taken from, and that information that was used, if we are not going to reveal the identities of the other municipalities so that we can compare. If, for example, our municipality has a certain number of full-time firefighters based on our population, et cetera, and other factors, perhaps other municipalities are paying higher taxes because they have more full-time firefighters, or they have a different system. And so for the benefit of the public, as we are entering into this budget process, I would like to understand exactly why we are concerned more about the feelings of other municipalities than just providing the identity of the facts as you have presented them to us.
Thank you,
And my
Councillor.
question is directed to our CAO. Thank
Yep,
you very
thank you,
much, through you,
Councillor.
Acting Mayor Johns.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As was stated previously, my understanding as well is that that report, that third-party independent report is available publicly. I just asked, maybe Mr. Marshall, can you confirm that that is available if somebody wishes to look at it?
So through you,
And-
Mr. Chair, yes, it is available.
Yeah, and I think there's, I don't know how many pages are in that report, but it's a few hundred, is it not? Like, there's a lot of analysis in there based on financial information, returns, and otherwise. So a wealth of information. And the reason, Councillor, that we like to use that is because it's third-party generated, third-party assessment, independent of the town. And so we like it because there's a level of not only real but perceived objectivity in using third-party analysis to assess how we're doing as an organization compared to others. The one thing that I will say is you're absolutely right. When service levels are higher in other municipalities, their taxes will be higher. So as we continue, for example, to you mentioned firefighters, add firefighters, that is going to be one of the reasons that our tax levies are going to be proportionately higher than other municipalities that already have it built in to a higher base tax levy and related level of service. So it's actually a really good example that you put on the table. And we would agree with that that is one of the reasons that you see our levies in relative terms so low, and why, if we want to continue to build those services, you're going to see higher levy pressures percentage-wise than you're going to see in the other municipalities. That's exactly one of the reasons for that.
So given that we do still have a bulk of the presentation to work through as it pertains to the preview, if we could move on to the next section, and if desired, we can continue the conversation on this item as we get forward to the end. So thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Good afternoon, Mr. Acting Mayor, members of committee, staff, and members of the public. Can we move to the next slide, please? As mentioned in the previous slide, the 2026 tax-supported budget includes total expenses of approximately $42 million. Included within this number is approximately $1.79 million of cost pressures. These pressures need to be offset by a combination of additional revenue, cost savings, as well as increased taxes in order to balance the budget. This slide provides some additional detail into each category and where the pressures are coming from. For base programs, we can see here that the majority of the pressure, approximately $765,000, is related to salary and benefit increases. This includes allowances in the budget for a cost of living increase for all staff and collective agreement provisions for when that is settled. Salaries and benefits make up approximately 75% of the tax-supported expenses as we deliver the majority of our services through staff. New staffing requirements will be discussed in upcoming slides. There's also approximately $215,000 in net cost increases in base programs, including contract increases in our animal control contracts, cost increases in our roads operations programs, and increased costs in software and licensing. Cost pressures relating to enhanced services and legislative changes result in a pressure of approximately $345,000. As we will see in the upcoming slides that discuss new staffing, there are pressures for resourcing that is required to respond to changing legislation and enhancing services. External specialized services are also required to align with the expected costs associated with the Integrity Commissioner, YorkNet Communications, services at all town facilities, enhanced software costs to improve service levels, and enhance services in communication. The tax-supported budget for 2026 continues with a deliberate and focused investment in community safety through our Fire and Emergency Services Department. The majority of the cost pressure in this grouping is related to the addition of 4 full-time firefighters. The balance of the cost pressure is related to increased costs and enhanced services within Fire and Emergency Services, mainly related to the increased contract pricing for dispatch and pager services. Next slide. In 2026, we do have some increased revenue and savings that are helping to offset some of those pressures. This slide provides the detail into each category. In looking at the trends and anticipated estimates for the next year, we anticipate to receive an increase of approximately $200,000 in extra revenue from user fees, bylaw fines, and available grant funding. The budget also includes a provision for increased revenue related to our road safety program of $575,000. This provision has been included but is pending confirmation of provincial legislation. Privatization of our Blue Box program for 2026 is resulting in savings in the town budget. Costs of approximately $375,000 will not be incurred, offset by lost grant funding of $75,000, resulting in a net savings of $300,000. During the budget development process, departments dig into their budgets and further analyze their requirements for upcoming years. This doesn't always necessitate budget increases, and there are some costs available for savings in the corporate training area of approximately $40,000. There's also been analysis performed on all costs and the use of resources across all departments, and a rebalancing of these costs mean an additional $190,000 of previously tax-funded pressures have been shifted into the capital fee and rate-supported areas. Next slide. So as previously mentioned, as the town continues to grow and we welcome new residents and businesses to the town, we also realize increased costs to maintain those existing services. Increased road networks result in approximately $40,000 of growth-related costs. Additional staff and expanded use of software results in approximately $30,000 in annual licensing. New staffing and related growth costs will be discussed in upcoming slides. There is also approximately $60,000 in new costs across various categories, including increased fleet repair costs for an expanded town fleet, increased banking fees resulting from higher volumes, and increased communications costs. These costs are offset by the increase we see in assessment growth, and therefore have a net cost zero impact on the budget. Next slide. So when we pull all those numbers together and we look at the overall impact, this is what we see. Prior to any dedicated funding initiatives, the net pressure on the tax-supported budget is approximately $485,000. A further investment into our asset management plans and the final dedicated provision for the operation of the Health and Active Living Plaza make up the balance of the cost pressures. The total brings us to a net tax levy impact for 2026 of $1.4 million. So the big question with all this information is usually, what does this mean for our residents? As mentioned earlier, a 1% tax increase on the tax levy is approximately $356,000. When we speak in percentages, it's often hard to compare and quantify in terms of how much this will cost our residents. The total annual increase for the average household in East Gwillimbury in 2026 is approximately $95 or $8 per month. At this point, it's also important to mention we do not take tax increases lightly. We do have a deferral program available for residents who may be facing financial hardships or be in a low-income category and cannot afford these increases. Applications are available on our website for residents who qualify. They are encouraged to apply for this program. Tax increases can be deferred while they remain in their homes, and the deferred amounts are settled upon change of ownership. Next slide. While the Health and Active Living Plaza has just opened its doors, and we all couldn't be more excited, we do have 3 additional staff requirements for 2026. 1 facilities operator to complete the team at the Help, as well as a program and events coordinator that will be needed for a full year of events to plan in 2026. The park will also be completed next year, and we'll need some additional hands to help maintain those grounds. These are included in the dedicated amounts from the multi-year funding plan and will not create a further tax pressure. Next slide. As was discussed last week in the council workshop, community safety is top of mind for everyone. The 2026 budget includes 4 new firefighters to help build the full-time staff base within that department. Next slide. Service level enhancements in growing communities are often hard to segregate. On this slide, you will see half of each of the 2 new positions that are a result of this blended need. The people and belonging position is a shared need to address accessibility, indigeneity, and equity initiatives combined with the growing diverse needs of the community and staff team. Our manager of roads position is also a shared need, split between service level enhancements and growth demands. For this reason, we have split the costs between these 2 categories. Legislative requirements need to continue with the previously piloted resource to address the changing needs of the municipal environment. An access and elections coordinator is required to respond to the increased workloads related to information access in our clerk's department, as well as the increased administrative demands on the clerk's office in an election year. This position is funded through both tax levy and the election reserve. Next slide. Growth-related staffing requests are listed on this slide. A growing community requires additional support, and these staffing requirements can assist in providing this. Detailed staffing requests with full descriptions will be available as part of your full budget material in the binders, and they will provide further justification and detailed requirements for each of the positions I have just listed. Next slide. We are often asked, how much does that health and active living plaza cost? So we've pulled it all together. The operating costs of the Health and Active Living Plaza were deliberately planned for with a multi-year funding strategy that began in 2016 for additional facilities. As you can imagine, back then, forecasting costs and anticipating revenues has been a challenge, and as such, we revisit this plan each year to ensure that appropriate funds will be available. The intent was to avoid a large tax increase in the opening year for residents. When we review the annual costs for the help, we can see total expenses relate to this facility and all the programming that it offers. That total is $4.2 million. The revenue the facility will bring in is estimated to be $2.1 million. This results in a net budget requirement to run the facility, provide the programming, fund the library, and support the operations of approximately $2.1 million. Next slide. This will be a familiar slide for those of you who remember past year's budgets. In 2016, the multi-year funding strategy was created to begin to create that tax room to offset the requirement of increasing the taxes in the year of opening. As we saw on the previous slide, the net operating costs are approximately $2.1 million. The funding up to the end of 2025 that was previously dedicated is $1.8 million. This amount is already included in our base budget. There's approximately $300,000 remaining to fund a full year of operating the help. Next slide. The asset management plan was approved by Council in June of 2025 as required by legislation. This also required that municipalities develop the financial strategy to fund asset management needs. That study recommended a 1.6% tax levy increase per year for the next 10 years. This chart shows the annual and cumulative contributions that have been put in place since 2023 while the full asset management plan and financial strategy were being developed. Continuing this contribution and building on it for 2026 is the recommended approach, with a $570,000 dedicated contribution being added. Next slide. We are also working on a plan to develop and determine the most appropriate approach for community safety within the town. This slide shows our investments that we have made in suppression firefighting to date. The 2026 budget will include 4 new firefighters, and that will bring our suppression staff to a total count of 28. The annual cost of adding further suppression staff, when translated to the average annual cost per resident, is approximately $10 per additional firefighter. Next slide. In summary, based on 2016 assessed values, a 1% tax levy increase results in approximately $356,000 of revenue, which translates to approximately $24 to the average home value in East Gwillimbury. This means the proposed increase for 2026 is equivalent to $95 per year for the average homeowner in East Gwillimbury. Even with this increase, we expect that EG will maintain its status of the lowest relative taxes in York Region. As noted on this slide, the increase is broken down between the three categories: base programs that include inflationary legislative pressures, growth-related pressures, and service level enhancements. The budget allows for the existing programs and services with the related growth to continue. It maintains a focus on modernization and transformation so that we can utilize technology to offer improved services and enhanced service levels to residents. As a reminder of the new process under strong mayor powers, our full budget details and binders will be distributed, and the overall budget includes all items. In past years, these were separated out and had to be added up manually in order to calculate those total tax levy requirements. The net budget line on the operating summary page, when you receive your binders, will be the total tax levy increase that is required to balance the budget. We will discuss the budget in further details at the upcoming budget committee meetings. At that time, if amendments are the desire of council, they can be proposed in those meetings. At this time, I will pause for any questions before I pass to Ms. Brown.
Thank you. So going around the dais here, do any members of committee have any questions for Ms. Adima? Councillor Leahy.
Thank you very much, through you, Acting Mayor John. So my question is again with relation to the to this concept of the lowest relative taxes. And I think that there is an assumption being made at a high level that because we are considering having additional full-time firefighters, that automatically has to lead to an increase in the property taxes. No one has suggested or considered any means of cuts or any other areas that don't have to grow necessarily, because our growth assessment is not keeping up with the growth. And so the growth is not paying for growth, as far as I'm understanding. And so you mentioned that there is still that outstanding increase to cover the HELP operating costs that will equal a 1% increase in the property taxes, correct? So is that going to be a 1% increase every year after 2026 for the operating costs?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, this is 2026 will be the final year of dedicated funding to support the HELP. After that, the base budget will include the full operating costs of the HELP.
So through you, Acting Mayor Johns, just to clarify, so after this year, future operating costs will be seen in additional property taxes, correct? If it costs $2.1 million to run the Health and Active Living Plaza, and we're looking at a 1% potentially increase right now to cover the shortfall, the gap of what had already been planned in previous years, are we looking at covering a $2.1 million and potentially increasing operating cost 2027 and years in the future?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, we do not anticipate any future increases in costs other than inflation that we can't control, but there will be no further operating cost increases to maintain the service level that is at the HELP now.
Okay, through you, maybe I'm not asking the question clearly enough. I'd like to ask it one more time more clearly. How are we paying for the operating costs after 2026 of $2.1 million for the Health and Active Living Plaza? Is there a pool of, is there an account somewhere? Are there other resources that we'll be taking from?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, those costs are included in the budget. So they will be maintained, just like all our other costs. Every year, that budget will roll forward and become the base for the next year. So the 2.1 million costs will be included in the 2026 budget and every base budget therefore after.
Thank you, Ms. Adima. Councillor Roy-DiClemente.
Thank you. Maybe I can help. We started saving for the operating costs of the Health and Active Living Plaza in 2016. So every year since 2016, there's been a dedicated piece of the budget that was built into our operating budget to allow for us to be able to have the operating funds in the operating budget when the facility opened. And we timed it so that there would only be $300,000 left in 2026. So we have already raised the $1.8 million needed since 2016, and that was embedded into the operating budget every year. Am I correct? Is that helping? We don't need to find 2.1 million because we've already created it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, correct.
Do any other members of the committee have any questions that they would like to ask Ms. Adima before she turns it over to her colleague, Ms. Brown? Councillor Roy-DiClemente.
Thank you. I noted the addition of, or the provision for $575,000 for automated speed enforcement. And we know that that has been a very challenging and very publicly debated issue. Obviously, we don't have any now, but that is an awfully large hole to leave in our operating budget if that doesn't proceed. So I'm just wondering what the contingency is for that amount.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So we had a feeling that this was going to materialize, but also in those discussions, the Premier said that there'd be funding to offset that. So we were kind of waiting to see what the full effect is. So once we get that full effect, we'll be able to see what we need to plug versus what we're going to be receiving back. But hopefully that will be fairly shortly, so it will be provided in time for our budget deliberations.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Any other questions for Ms. Adima before we turn it over to Ms. Brown? Seeing none, Ms. Adima, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Okay. So, as always, is that really loud? Is it okay? Okay. As always, staff continue to work diligently on a number of important capital projects and initiatives that benefit our community in a number of ways. At present, there's approximately $87.2 million in approved capital funding that remains to be spent on these initiatives. When considering the town's capacity to take on additional capital projects, it's important to recognize the scope of ongoing work and these outstanding commitments because they have direct implications on both our resources and our financial reserves. Some of the major capital works that are currently underway, each significant in cost, time, and staff effort, include the completion of the Health and Active Living Plaza Park, the continued investment in community revitalization along Yonge Street and Centre Street, and ongoing infrastructure rehabilitation and improvements across the town. Next slide, please. So in addition to those ongoing projects, staff have proposed $20.9 million worth of new capital projects as part of the 2026 budget submission. The distribution of these costs among departments is reflective of those departments that own and maintain the majority of the town's infrastructure assets. So we have engineering and public works accounting for 33% of those costs, parks, recreation, and culture at 22%, and water and wastewater at nearly 22% as well of the 2026 capital submissions. Looking over the 10-year forecast period, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture share of those costs is expected to increase, which is driven by several planned expansions to existing parks and recreation facilities. Next slide, please. So here we have the 2026 budget and the 10-year capital program by funding source. For 2026, we can see that the majority of the program is funded by reserves at 83% of total funding. Over the forecast period, that shifts to nearly 50% funded through development charges. Similar to last year, given the slower pace of development that we've seen over the last couple of years, it's appropriate to focus on repair and replacement of our existing assets. And then as development activity increases, as we expect that it will in the next coming years, we will shift our focus to growth-related projects that are more appropriately funded by development charges and fees. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of what you can expect to see in the 2026 submission list on the capital side. And you can see that the emphasis remains on repair and replacement of our existing assets. So this includes continued investment in the rehabilitation of our roads, water, and wastewater systems. We've got some work on the Mount Albert storm outfalls, replacement of a pumper vehicle, and repairs and upgrades to our parks and playgrounds. Planned community improvements include a location study for a 4th fire station, the introduction of a Safer Streets Initiative program, several economic development initiatives, and responses to the continued demand for pickleball courts. On the administrative side, staff are proposing a number of initiatives, including a new pilot project role within the CAO's office, replacement of the town's website, and upgrades to IT hardware and software to improve efficiency and service delivery. Next slide, please. The 2026 proposed budget also includes our development and fee-supported budgets. As always, they will be detailed in the budget binder. Each of these areas maintains its own reserve account, which helps us manage the ebbs and flows of development activity and the corresponding revenue that's generated. Next slide, please. The region of York continues to represent a significant portion of the town's water and wastewater rate-supported budget, approximately 2/3 of the town's expenditures. As a result, changes to the region's rates have a direct and substantial impact on the town of East Gwillimbury's local water and wastewater rates. For 2026, the region is projecting annual rate increases of 3.3%, which is anticipated to continue over the next 3 years. This projected increase has been incorporated into our budget to ensure alignment with regional cost pressures and maintain our financial sustainability in our rate-supported services. The 2025 Water and Wastewater Long-Range Financial Plan and Rate Study is nearing completion. The study will be presented to Council in an upcoming meeting, and it'll provide updated financial projections and policy direction to support sustainable rate setting and long-term capital planning for the water and wastewater system. This year, the capital submissions total $4.5 million, which will fund water and wastewater rehabilitation projects. The investments are focused on maintaining existing infrastructure, addressing our aging assets, and preventing costly emergency repairs. Overall, the 2026 rate-supported budget strikes a careful balance between affordability for residents and the continued sustainability of the town's water and wastewater systems. I'm going to pass it back now to Mr. Marshall because just one slide left, I believe. Although, if there are questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Brown. Two questions. The first one, the pumper truck. Do we anticipate that if we place the order early in the year that we would receive the truck before year end? Or, because I know it's not something you grab off a shelf. It takes a while for them to be put together. So I was just curious if we'd see it in the same fiscal year.
Of course. Through you, Acting Mayor Johns, I will defer to one of the emergency services staff that's in the chair today. However, I will say that we do spread the costs over 2 years because there is an acknowledgement that it typically takes 2 years between when we order the truck and when it's delivered. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Deputy's jumping here. Who wants it? Deputy Cook.
Yes, it's unlikely that we'll receive the truck in the year that it's ordered.
Okay, thank you. My second question is with regards to the rate increase on the water. York Region's our sole supplier of our water, so a 3.3% increase. Are we going to do a straight pass-through of the rate increase onto our residents, or will we be absorbing some of that?
So, through you, Acting Mayor Johns, the rate increase from the region is a substantial part of our budget, as I mentioned, and so it's challenging for the town to be able to absorb those costs. Typically, it does result in an adjustment to the rates at the local level. But in the water and wastewater rate study that's coming, I believe it's at the next meeting, we have a consultant coming in to explain the true impacts on our rates.
Any other questions from around the dais? Councillor Leahy.
Thank you very much, through you, Acting Mayor Johns. My question is with regard to the total previously approved capital outstanding of a balance of $87.2 million. So would you please clarify if my understanding is correct that for the Health and Active Living Plaza, for the facility and park construction, there is still an outstanding amount of $23.6 million. And how is that going to be paid?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a balance for the Health and Active Living Plaza project. The project covers both the facility and the park. We know that the facility has been largely completed. It's open now. So many of the invoices have been paid that we're owing for the construction of the facility. However, it is an ongoing initiative, and because the park is still underway in relatively early stages, we expect that the balance will be paid throughout the life of that project.
Through you, Acting Mayor Johns. So to fine-tune my question a bit, we have been told in the past that the building was completely paid for by development charges, correct? And looking through the previous records of September 7th, 2022, the previous council approved the charges for the Health and Active Living Plaza, which were then estimated to be more than $100 million in September 7th of 2022, the previous council. So they were aware that it was going to cost more than $100 million back in 2022. So is my understanding correct that development charges have not paid for fully the cost of building the Health and Active Living Plaza?
So sorry, I'm going to step in a little bit here. So through you, Mr. Chair, the costs that have been incurred right now have been paid through development charges and capital and community contributions. So the costs that have been incurred right now have been paid.
Just to look to keep everything on track with where we're going on this agenda, will this committee or council be receiving an update regarding the financial status of HALPS separate to this, just to ensure that we can keep moving through this agenda?
So through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Karmazin and I are planning to prepare a review of costs incurred for the Health and Active Living Plaza at a future council meeting. So there will be a full.
So the public
Yes.
will have a dedicated report against
Yes.
it. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other questions from the dais around any of the items here? Councillor Carruthers.
Just for clarity for those watching at home, when we approve a capital project, it's with a funding source. And sometimes things don't get completed within the year that we've approved them. So this slide is showing us that we have $87 million that we have approved with a funding source that staff just haven't had time yet to spend. It's simplifying it.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions for our finance team that is presented here today? Councillor Foster.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a comment, not so much a question. I think I say this every year when we start talking about budget, and I'd like to impress upon Mr. Valchek and our senior management team that, you know, I know we always look for efficiencies to try and make our town run as efficiently as we can. I think we need to really continue doing that, and I'd love to see everybody take a long, hard look at what we do, so we're not just simply spending money because we always have or we always do on one particular part of the budget. I'm hoping that there will be some efficiencies that come out, and I can think about, you know, we talk about staffing of the fire department. I know that Chief Mainprize is going to have a lot more information to help us make those decisions as we go along. So what I'm really looking forward to here is a need to have budget, not a nice to have budget. And I think I say that just about every year. So we are going to have lots of opportunities to talk during our individual meetings or ward meetings, however it turns out this year. So I think we can nail down and get into the weeds a lot when we do that. So I look forward to the binder and the meetings that we have to make this all work.
Thank you. Councillor Leahy.
Thank you very much, through you, Acting Mayor Johns. I'd like to make a friendly amendment, and that would be that the staff supply all of the councillors with the study that they have based their graphs on, and so that that information is available to us, even though the report is hundreds of pages. I believe that that should also be made accessible to the general public as well, because if it's so easy to find, it would be very helpful to the public. It would be helpful to me as a councillor, as we're at the beginning of this process, to have that study that everybody is referring to at our fingertips, so that we do have a full understanding of those charts before we dive into making decisions. And again, I would like to just state, I would like to make that amendment, that friendly amendment, that staff will follow up with providing that study to both the website, so it's accessible for the public, as well as to the councillors. And I would like to say again that my job is to be concerned with the facts of East Gwillimbury, and if the facts of other municipalities aren't so rosy looking, in my opinion, we need to know all of the facts about the municipalities when we're comparing ourselves to them, including their identity on these charts. So my friendly amendment is to request staff supply council as well as the general public with the study that they are basing those graph charts on.
Great, thank you. So Councillor Leahy, just as a, just wanted to address, we actually don't even have the motion moved yet. So the motion that would be tabled would be it resolved that the finance presentation dated October 21st, 2025, entitled the 2026 Proposed Budget Preview be received. So I would need a mover for that, Councillor Roy-DiClemente. And then to your amendment, you're requesting the hyperlink for the BMA study being circulated to council and be available to the public. Is that correct? Councillor Roy-DiClemente.
All 615 pages of the BMA Management Consulting Report is already in our inboxes.
Councillor Leahy.
Then I will change my amendment. Then I would request that we have the unredacted version of the graph charts which state the names. So I think it's a completely unreasonable expectation that we're supposed to go through those 600 pages, and I don't understand the necessity for secrecy with regard to the identity of the municipalities that we're comparing ourselves to.
Yeah, I just don't want to get into a debate regarding secrecy, because there is full transparency, and what you can simply just type in a keyword and it comes up within the document. And I did want to acknowledge, Councillor Roy-DiClemente will definitely follow up. I did want to acknowledge that there is a motion, and then there was an amendment to circulate the hyperlink to have posted to the public, which I would wholly support, so that the public could find that. But I just wanted to go and state fully to the public that the comment regarding the secrecy, I just want to fully step away from, because that's simply not the case. It's about mutual trust and mutual respect within all the municipalities that I think that we would attempt to govern ourselves by. And so having that information available, I think, would be important within that hyperlink, as you suggest. So Councillor Roy-DiClemente, did you wish to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. For me, it's less important to delve into that report, simply because when I look at the slide with the 1% tax levy increase, I'm able to see that one municipality, if they raise taxes by 1%, they raise $2.5 million. That's clearly not the Township of King. I know that they have a larger operating budget, and so I can have a good sense, based on what their tax levy increase it would be per capita and so on. I don't actually need to know specifics, because, quite frankly, I'm less concerned about what's happening in other municipalities, and I'm more concerned about what's happening here in East Gwillimbury. So, Mr. Chair, I just move that we call the question, please, and move on with our agenda.
So the question has been called with the motion along with the amendment on that. Madam Clerk, can you clarify that there is no amendment?
Mr. Chair, there was a motion to receive, which was moved by Councillor Roy-DiClemente. An amendment has been proposed by Councillor Leahy, requesting that staff supply all members of council with the public with the BMA study, and that is still lingering. Your amendment would be the first item that you would have to deal with before going and proceeding with your main motion.
Correct. So to clarify, calling the question is calling the question on the amendment prior to the resolution. So any further discussion, so we have the mover, any further discussion on the amendment?
Can we put it up?
Madam Clerk, if you could.
Just bear with us for a moment. So highlighted in blue is the amendment that was previously being discussed.
My comment was the hyperlink, that council requests staff to provide the BMA study hyperlink to council and to have publicly posted. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Carruthers.
I think we need to talk to staff about whether that is something that they can share. I know it's available on the website, but it's on the website of municipalities, I believe, who pay for it. I'm just not sure. I don't want to direct staff to something that might end up costing us money if we're providing the hyperlink to it. And providing the hyperlink to council, we already all have it. So I don't think we need that in the motion anymore.
Okay, so your first comment was to ask staff. So I will ask staff to give the hyperlink that is available through Google, is what I'm suggesting. Would any member of the staff? Mr. Marshall.
So through you, Mr. Chair, we will check to make sure that's available, but I think it is. But we'll just confirm to make sure that it is available to send out, and if it is, we'll send it out.
So where available, if we could have that in the motion.
Through you, Acting Mayor Johns, would it be possible to write it out in full, the BMA, so that everybody understands what the acronym stands for? Well, we wouldn't even need to do this if we would just have the identity of the other municipalities. That
I
would
think
save
that-
everybody the expectation
Sorry,
that they have the time to research it.
Councillor Leahy, so
yeah.
I would just say that each year, we've retained a consistent approach through the finance team to ensure mutual respect and mutual trust between all municipalities across the region. And the slides do contain the asterisks on the bottom where the information is contained through the BMA study, and to which I'm wholly supporting your commentary to provide further transparency, because we do reference it within the presentation, so it would make sense to have that. And so I believe that we are addressing this. So the question has been called, and so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? I'm not sure if, was that a 3-3? 3-3, the motion fails. Okay. Now we go back to the main motion. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And the main motion is, be it resolved that the finance presentation dated October 21st, 2025, entitled the 2026 Proposed Budget Preview, be received. Councillor Roy-DiClemente moved that. Is there any further discussion on this item? All those in favor? Motion carries. Wonderful. Thank you so much to the finance team for all of your hard work and effort. Folks of the municipality sincerely appreciate your efforts. We will now transition to our item H on the agenda, which is corporate services under Councillor Carruthers chairing. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you very much. We have 3 items today, all of them good news stories, and I will turn it over to General Manager Gandhi to take us through the first one, which is entitled the Corporate Energy Plan. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So today, the Corporate Energy Plan is being presented to Council. It's one of the deliverables of the Council-approved environmental strategy, and also one of the actions of the Climate Emergency Declaration that Council passed in April 2023. It reflects our commitment to sustainable growth, and it's an opportunity to lead by example. It's one, and also reflects our environmental stewardship. Before I pass this along to Chris Ross, I'd like to acknowledge Chris Ross, who is the Environmental Initiatives Manager. I'd like to acknowledge and thank all of the departments involved. This was truly a collaborative effort involving many of the departments here today. So over to you, Ms. Ross.
Thank you, Ms. Gandhi, and through you, Madam Chair. Earlier this year, we presented to Council the components of the Climate Action Plan, and it has 3 projects, one of them being the Energy Plan. The Energy Plan represents the mitigation portion of this climate action, and it provides opportunity to increase resilience, not only from the environmental perspective in the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, but also from the demographic and economic perspective as demand and population increases and energy costs change over time. Today, we present the corporate section of the Energy Plan, and to assist in the development of this plan, we engage with Climate Neutral to offer technical support in identifying actions tailored to EG's unique corporate characteristics. One of these features is that EG will triple its population in the next years, and with corporate growth, we want to sustain the high level of service delivery and standards. I want to introduce Kyle Bassett, PhD in civil engineering and founder CTO of Climate Neutral Canada. Climate Neutral offers a range of tools for calculating and modeling climate action plans in a user-friendly way. We develop this plan in a hybrid model, which means that town kept control of what the plan includes. And we want to dream high and to the endless possibilities while being realistic. And I just have to say that there is no plane that ascends high into the sky without a proper airstrip. So I will pass it to Kyle. Kyle, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Council, Council Chair, staff, and the public. Thank you for having me here today to review the highlights of the Corporate Energy Plan, which has been developed for EG's municipal operations. Special thank you to Christina Ross for doing such an excellent job in leading this project on East Gwillimbury's end. I'm Dr. Kyle Bassett, the founder and lead consultant for Climate Neutral, where we support communities across Canada from coast to coast, including municipalities, regions, and First Nations. We support these communities with data-driven practical climate action planning and software to support their climate initiatives. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. There we go. So for this project, we had an extensive project task force consisting of members from East Gwillimbury staff as well as York Region staff as listed here. The project was truly a collaborative effort, and the project was conducted with a hybrid consulting model where extensive engagement was completed along each of the project phases to ensure that there was comprehensive staff input as well as some capacity building exercises and involvement to ensure that this plan has a successful implementation and full staff buy-in moving forward. Special thank you to the project task force, both from East Gwillimbury as well as York Region, for their great input throughout this process. So, as you have received as part of the council agenda today, this project generated a full comprehensive 70-plus page plan with very extensive technical details and discussion. My focus today during this presentation is to provide some highlights from this project and provide the opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of background, I'm sure you are very well aware of the Thinking Green EG's environmental strategy, which was unanimously approved by Council in March of 2024. The creation of this corporate action plan, which has been this project, was one of the action items which came out of the environmental strategy, along with the creation of a community energy plan, an adaptation plan, and green building standards. So all the work that we're presenting today is in support of this previously approved strategy, and all of this work we're discussing today helps to address the climate emergency, which was declared by EG Council back in April 2023. What we're discussing today truly is, as Mita mentioned, a good news story. Next slide, please. This project and the actions associated have been designed to align with policies and plans which have been established at the federal, provincial, regional, and local levels. The goal being that this is a truly integrated approach, integrating with these existing policy documents so that everything works together in a cohesive manner, supporting the sustainable development of your community. There are areas that are outside of EG's operational control, and we've done a thorough job to identify those variables, both in the report and throughout the context, the body of the report, where applicable. Next slide, please. A key theme throughout this plan is the planning for the significant population growth that is expected for East Gwillimbury. Considering East Gwillimbury's high anticipated population growth, many of the actions within this plan really focus and revolve around meeting that future growth in an energy efficient and sustainable manner. For this project, we utilized the population growth projections, which are consistent with the projections that EG staff and administration are using for their own internal planning. And as we see from this chart, by 2050, the existing East Gwillimbury population will only represent about 30% of the total community population. So much of this plan focuses on the new buildings, the new fleet and infrastructure that will be created to meet this increase in demand. Next slide, please. So the development of this plan involved 7 phases that we have outlined here, and engagement and capacity building was conducted with the task force throughout each of the phases. A draft of this report was distributed to the task force several months ago, and comments and input was collected seriously considered and then incorporated into the document you have today. So extensive work has been done to ensure that everyone's input has been taken into account and incorporated in the document. Next slide. So the first phase of this project involved the creation of a baseline corporate inventory. So this was conducted for the year of 2022. This inventory was conducted for emissions, energy consumption, and energy cost. And the results indicate that the total emissions for East Gwillimbury corporate operations are 1,503 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which equates to 39.9 kilograms per resident. This per capita value, per resident value, is critical as it allows for the estimation of future emissions levels for the 2030, 2040, and 2050 planning horizons, and also allows us to do benchmarking between other communities in York Region and Ontario. This diagram is a flow chart showing the distribution between total emissions between the four sectors, which were the sectors of analysis included in this analysis. So buildings, fleet, water, and street lighting. It also depicts how the emissions within each of these sectors are distributed between the four primary energy sources: natural gas, electricity, diesel, and gasoline. The building sector was the largest contributor to emissions within the profile. Natural gas was the largest contributing source of energy, so the largest emitting source of energy, and electricity represented a small proportion of 18% of the total emissions. Next slide, please. So using the results from the inventory analysis, we then completed a benchmarking exercise of emissions to determine how East Gwillimbury's municipal operation emissions stack up compared to other communities in York Region and Ontario. So this bar chart displays East Gwillimbury's levels compared to three other municipalities within York Region and Ontario. And the results are really in line with what we would expect for a community of this size, with this number of buildings, this number of fleet vehicles and services, etc. So of note is that Municipality C really represents a best practice level where it has similar emissions levels to East Gwillimbury, but maintains this level with a much, much larger population of 430,000 people. This is really a great example or role model for sustainable growth for EG. Next slide, please. Now, the main takeaway from the benchmarking exercise is that while emissions levels in East Gwillimbury are low compared to the other communities within the benchmarking, there does exist significant opportunities for reduction when considered on a per asset basis. So when we look at the specific building performance or the specific vehicle performance, opportunities really become apparent. So the full document contains a more asset-specific discussion for each of the sectors, which outlines some of the details and considerations for those opportunities for reduction. Next slide, please. So following the benchmarking analysis, a mitigation model was developed with the project task force to investigate the actions and strategies which could be implemented to reduce emissions in each of the areas of EG operations, so buildings, fleet, street lighting, and water. 15 actions were identified and discussed with the project task force, and we then went and investigated these mitigation actions for their impact in reducing emissions levels for the 2030, 2040, and 2050 planning horizons. Next slide, please. The 5 building sector actions are displayed here. The main highlights here being that the majority of your current building emissions come from just 2 buildings, the Arena Complex and the Operations Center. And by addressing emissions at these 2 buildings through the potential retrofit of the Arena Complex and some optimization efforts at the Operations Center, significant reductions can be achieved within the building sector already. As also of crucial importance are the green development standards, which are a separate study which are being developed concurrently with this plan. And those are really truly critical in addressing emissions from new buildings, which are constructed in response to the future growth of the community. Next slide, please. So next is the fleet sector. The actions here are based upon the Green Fleet Strategy, which is a policy that has been approved by council, which was brought forth by staff previously. So several of the actions, such as vehicle right sizing and electric vehicle integration, are really already underway as part of this Green Fleet Strategy. So this sector is really hitting the ground running and moving along quite nicely already. Next slide, please. Third is the street lighting sector. Now, one of the observations we saw during the benchmarking exercise was that East Gwillimbury does have a higher street level emissions levels than other comparable communities, which does represent a significant opportunity for improvement. Part of this reason is due to much of EG's street lighting infrastructure is based upon high pressure sodium, so HPS lighting technology, which is somewhat outdated and does consume much more energy than current modern LED systems. The goal here is that these older streetlights can be converted to LEDs, resulting in not only significant energy savings, but also significant cost savings. So many communities throughout Canada have already implemented LED conversion successfully. So there's many success stories to be able to use as a roadmap for changes in this sector. High efficiency LEDs will also be used when new street lighting is installed for new developments and subdivisions. And I do believe that is a policy that already is occurring within EG as new areas are being developed. Next slide, please. Finally, we have the water sector, and this was investigated, and the actions here are in alignment with York Region's current strategies and policies relating to conservation, inflow infiltration, and leak control. The wastewater in East Gwillimbury is treated at the Duffin Creek Water Pollution Control Plant, and that pollution control plant publishes sustainability reports and does identify its own actions for efficiency improvements over time. And so we've integrated those actions within this plan itself. Next slide. So utilizing the 15 mitigation actions which were identified by the project task force and then investigated, we have modeled emission savings which are depicted here in the emissions drawdown chart. So this displays the business as usual scenario at the top of the chart, which shows how your emissions could potentially rise over the next 25 years if action is not taken to address emissions and energy efficiency. Below the business as usual scenario, each one of those slices is one of the mitigation actions which will work to reduce the emissions towards the target pathway. So that could be considered an ideal pathway for development of your sustainability in EG municipal operations. So by implementing these 15 strategies by 2050, your emissions levels could actually be lower than what you're currently putting out right now, as of 2022. So looking at a significant growth in population while also achieving emissions reductions from current levels. So very significant reductions. Once again, really a good news story. Next slide, please. So using these results, the target reductions can be determined and established. So what we're looking at here are the reductions which can be obtained through the implementation of those actions. We determined that there are approximately 2,973 tons of potential emission savings by 2050. So this is equivalent to the planting of 49,000 trees or 1,557 drives across Canada coast to coast. So once again, very significant transformative reductions, but reductions that we feel are very practical and realistic given the engagement and discussion we've had with EG staff. Next slide, please. So using these results, the target reductions as part of this plan can be established. So we're looking at a 30% reduction by 2030, a 56% reduction by 2040, and a 79% reduction by 2050. It's important to note that these are measured on a per capita basis, as we do understand that population growth is an area of uncertainty within future forecasting. So by setting it at a per capita basis, it allows your targets to work regardless of precisely how your community grows, right? So precisely what that percentage growth number would be. The pathway charts for per capita emissions are on the left, the bottom left here, and total emissions are displayed on the bottom right. Now, it's very important to note that this is a living document which will be updated with new data, with inventories ideally being conducted on an annual basis, such that council and staff can see exactly how emissions are changing over time. And these reductions can also be considered in context as new population data becomes available. So for example, when the new census is conducted and those results released, that can be implemented, integrated into this plan, and everything will work together. So next slide, please. So in conclusion, the targets and actions presented are representative of transformational but also practical change, and when implemented will work to establish East Gwillimbury among one of the more energy efficient and environmentally sustainable communities in Canada. Beyond solely environmental responsibility, this is very much about controlling energy cost over time. And so by implementing the corporate energy plan, there could be potential approximate savings of 3.2 million in annual operating cost. And I do want to note that that is a rough estimate. Overall, this plan is a good news story which works to support the goals outlined in EG's Thinking Green environmental strategy, and also works to help address the climate emergency which was declared by EG Council. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. I will ask for council someone on council to make a motion on this, perhaps Councillor Crone as liaison to the Environment Committee. We have two parts to this motion. One is to receive it, and the second part is to endorse the draft corporate energy plan. So I'll open the floor to questions. Seeing none, that's good news. Oh, sorry. Okay. Councillor Leahy. I have to wait just a little longer for people to get there.
Councillor Roy-DiClemente had her hand up first. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Leahy. Through you, I think this is more of a question for our own staff than for Dr. Bassett, but streetlight conversions, I know we've actually been talking about this for well over a decade, and we've done pilot projects, and we've had challenges with the light head being incompatible with LEDs and so on. This report has us creating this streetlight conversions as a short-term goal. This would be great, except that we've already tried this and it hasn't been quite so short-term for us. So I'm just wondering if Mr. Molinari or a member of the staff team could comment on that part, please.
Thank you. Can we turn that over to Mr. Molinari? Go ahead.
Sure, through you, Madam Chair. So our LED conversion strategy has been evolving, as you've mentioned, and we are at a point now where we have a design in place town-wide for those conversions, and it's really part of a financial plan in order to, once we have the design in place, which will be very shortly, putting that financial plan in order to make those upgrades to LED in a logical and rolled out fashion. So we'll be seeing more of that through the budget process over the next coming years with a number of LED conversions in a systematic way.
Just as a follow-up, Madam Chair, the design and financial plan through you to Mr. Molinari, do you anticipate that it can be done within the short term? I believe the plan calls for short term for, is it 5 years? 5 years. Is that something that we can achieve? Or should we be moving it into a short and medium term plan?
Through you, Madam Chair, I would suspect that we'll probably start seeing some capital projects come forward for those conversions starting in 2027. What we've seen is that there is still some, we did a project this year to extend some of the service life of the poles is actually the poles that were starting to fail on us. Now that we have we have some additional life expectancy on those poles, we have some flexibility to work with finance in terms of the budget that's required in order to move those projects forward. The capital outlay for most of those projects are front-loaded, So as much as they will provide ultimate savings in the long term, we need to be able to find those funds in order to actually bring those capital projects forward over the next few years. So I would say it's probably will be starting in about 2 years, and I would say it's probably a 10-year program in order to get all those put in place efficiently.
Thank you very much for that. That was helpful. I might suggest that we amend the plan just to be more realistic with respect to this element. Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. I know when I was chair of CIES, that was one of the first items that we talked about, so it has been a long time. I know. It was already in the works when I got here, so. Councillor Leahy, go ahead.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Chair. I have two questions. One is with regard to generally electric vehicles. We seem to be in a time of in our country and in our communities where there's some economic challenges that are potentially impacting the whole electric vehicle plan at both the federal and provincial level. So I would like to get some feedback from our general manager of engineering and public works with regard to what the future holds, both short-term and long-term, and roughly what kind of investment financially the town would be making with regard to vehicles, with, for example, snowplows and fire trucks and other large vehicles in our fleet, if that is a practical ambition to have to convert to electric vehicles. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair. So electric vehicles is also an evolving matter. So currently, vehicles, pickup trucks, cars are readily available as electric vehicles. That really hasn't translated very well to snowplows and larger vehicles. So I would suspect that, as we move forward and as those opportunities are available, as we have appropriate charging stations and infrastructure to support those vehicles, we'll continue to purchase electric vehicles, which we have over the past few years. But the larger vehicles, with respect to snowplows and heavy equipment, the technology has to evolve a little bit more before we can start heading in that direction.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Chair, and I have one further question. We ended it with a conclusion, and my question is for our consultant, Dr. Kyle Bassett. You mentioned at the very end in the conclusion that the rough estimate of potential cost savings, this is all aspirational, but roughly is potentially $3.2 million. But nowhere in the report did it address any potential costs for the infrastructure and for the equipment and for the personnel that would be required to follow through with this plan. So why was the potential costs not addressed? And I understand that there's always ongoing increases in inflation, but how are we supposed to base our decisions on these projects if we have no idea of what the overall cost might be, and we're dealing with projects on a piecemeal basis in the future? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Now, on page 67 of the report, we do have a brief discussion of financial considerations, and we do identify that the specific project-specific financial aspects of each project will need to be investigated on an individual basis as these projects come to council and come for capital approval. So that's an element that we do recognize will need to be going back to council for approval when these actions do go for full implementation. We've also identified that grants will be pursued in order to offset the costs of operating these, implementing these actions. And in the mitigation actions table, there's a mitigation actions summary table. I can just find the page here. That's starting on page 58, 59. There is a category there which does identify the high-level cost categories. So whether it's a low cost, medium cost, or high cost item, the goal, the idea hearing that many of the actions which we have implemented in this plan are actually net cost savings. And then there are some that are net cost savings in terms of the life cycle of their project. So something that, and then I do want to mention that 3.2 million is an approximate value that we did arrive at. Of course, in these types of meetings, if you don't include a cost number, that's the first question that comes up in my experience. And so that was arrived by extrapolating the per capita energy cost by the future population and then considering the achieved reductions. So this is a very rough estimate that just should be, kind of taken with a grain of salt. But the financial considerations will be assessed on a per project specific basis when they come up for implementation.
In the meantime, sorry, can I add to that too, through you, Madam Chair? In the meantime, in the report, it also states that the plan is to align these initiatives and actions to the asset management and new capital projects. So when we have replacement cost or maintenance cost, staff will use the recommendations of this report to run through those actions. And for new buildings that can be needed for the community, we use the highest standards that we have in the Thinking Green Development Standards that are actually in the update process. So basically, the answer to your question is everything that Dr. Bassett said, but also that we will do our best to align everything to maintenance and new purchases, so it doesn't have a huge impact on budget.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. And I just wanted to add to that when we were looking at the help and the Environment Committee had come forward and said that we should look for some energy retrofit type stuff that we could add in. I guess it's not a retrofit if you put it in to begin with. But at first, Council looked at the cost of those and thought, oh, we can't increase the cost of this project. But then staff presented us with a chart that showed just when each of those would start saving us money. So for instance, the special blanket on the pool, it was more than a regular blanket, but it pays for itself in the energy savings. So I think that a number of these things will pay for themselves in quite short order. So I appreciate that line of questioning, Councillor Leahy. Anyone else have any comments or questions on this? I'll wait a little longer. Seeing none. Thank you so much, Dr. Bassett and Ms. Ross, for this. I really love that we now have benchmarks and actions associated with targets that we can now track, and I look forward to having this come back to us on a regular basis to see how we're meeting those targets. Thank you so much. So we have the motion to receive and to endorse the draft corporate energy plan. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the second item under corporate services, which is the 30 by 30 target, another very exciting project. Ms. Gandhi.
Through you, Madam Chair. The 30 by 30 target aims to protect at least 30% of lands and waters by the year 2030. It's an international agreement ratified by 196 countries worldwide, including Canada. And for EG, this also reflects our commitment to environmental stewardship and the Council-approved environmental strategy. I'll note that we became aware of the challenge by way of, or the target rather, by way of our interaction with the Georgian Island First Nations, and they had indicated that our participation in the target would be a good idea. And we've been working with them, of course, with the climate adaptation plan. I'll also note that we're in good company. There's other municipalities who are participating in this. Ajax, Brampton, Caledon, Hamilton, Kitchener, Markham, Toronto, and these are just Ontario, Southern Ontario municipalities. There are municipalities across the country that are participating in this. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them or refer them to Ms. Ross. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm wondering if we can throw the map up, because I think the map in this report was very interesting and very good. I think we're uniquely positioned that we are able to do this 30 by 30 without breaking a sweat, that we have so much land that is under our control that we can protect. We have a motion, a three-part motion here to receive, to endorse the town's participating in the 30 by 30 target, which affirms the municipality's commitment to contributing to national and international biodiversity targets, and the council authorized staff to submit the list of eligible town properties to the Canadian Protected and Conserved Area Database as listed in Appendix 1 of this report. If we can put that up, that would be great. And in the meantime, is there, can I have someone move that first of all? Councillor Leahy, and any questions? Councillor Leahy, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My question is a general one. In the previous discussions we were having about the draft budget, we weren't able to identify the municipalities that we were comparing ourselves to, but now on this topic, we are saying that we're in good company and we're listing the other municipalities. So I would prefer to have consistency in that. And in the previous report that was prepared by Dr. Kyle Bassett, he also identified a municipality that was an excellent role model that was conducting itself well in this area, but it was only identified as municipality C. So when it's a good news story, I'm wondering why we can't identify the municipality from his report. So, but I'm going off a little bit on the subject matter at hand. But I'm less interested in what other countries are doing, and I'm not interested in locking us into submitting a list of our town properties to an international database. I think that the intention is to affirm the municipality's commitment to contributing to targets, but we should be, we don't necessarily need to be locking ourselves in with other countries and other nations to do that. So I'm not in favor of the way this is worded. Although I like the intention, I'm not in agreement with the endorsement of putting our properties on a list internationally. Thank you.
Ms. Gandhi?
So through you, Madam Chair, in terms of, first of all, this is not an initiative that binds us to anything. Simply, it is the municipality, similar to other locations, and in fact, the Government of Canada has done this, making just a public commitment to say that we are contributing to the initiative of protecting lands. These are already protected lands. These are lands that are town-owned. They constitute our parks and our trails, and they are entirely municipal properties. If we need to make any changes, we simply need to make the changes. We inform them and we take off a property or we add. We're well within the 30%, given the fact that we have so much green space and protected areas that for East Gwillimbury, it was absolutely no significant effort at all to actually be able to recognize the 30%. So even if we were to remove a number of properties from the list, we would still probably be within the range.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously as well. Thank you very much. We have one more item, and that is the proposed 2026 statutory public and holiday closure schedule. And General Manager Gandhi, I'll turn that back to you.
So through you, Madam Chair, this is an item that we bring to Council on an annual basis. It lists the proposed holidays, and it is ideally also on the same agenda as the council meeting schedule. I think that it wasn't done intentionally, but it worked out that way, and I think that actually is a good practice. We typically bring this a little bit later on in the year, but we thought it would be best to add it a little bit earlier in the council agenda. So it's fairly self-explanatory. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them or to refer them to our Director of People and Belonging, Dahlia Demroth.
Excellent. So we have a two-part motion, one to receive and one to approve. Councillor Foster, would you like to move that? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you very much. And if there's nothing else, I will turn the chair back over to you, Councillor Johns.
Thank you, Councillor Carruthers. So that takes us to item I, Legal and Legislative Services, and I'll be sitting in the chair for this, and this is a Legal and Legislative Services Report 2026, the council meeting schedule, and our municipal clerk, Legivardi, will be taking this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, the purpose of this report is to present the proposed 2026 council meeting schedule for council's consideration and approval. The proposed schedule also reflects the timelines associated with the upcoming 2026 municipal and school board elections. As you can see in the report, the meeting schedule covers the balance of the 2022 to 2026 term. It does set dates beginning after November 14, when this term ends, when the new term of council will commence. This typically provides a continuity of scheduling, while we also recognize that it is standard practice for any incoming council to review and, if necessary, amend its meeting schedule as one of its first formal actions once the regular meetings are underway. The final meeting of this term of council has been scheduled for September 9, 2026. It's worth noting, though, that while the final schedule is set for that date, if something urgent arises, council has the discretion to call for a special council meeting during that period. So that is still within your discretion. And I believe that concludes the overview of this report, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to take any questions or comments with respect to the content of this report.
Great, thank you. Why don't we have a mover for this well, and then we can look to discuss it if there is any. Councillor Roy-DiClemente, thank you for moving that. Is there any discussion around this item? And Councillor Roy-DiClemente, thank you.
Surprise. I noted the difference between the last meeting of 2025 on December 16th and then a fairly long gap between then and our first meeting of 2026 is being January 20th. And last year, to be honest, I'd almost forgotten how to be a councillor. It was that much of a gap. But I'm just wondering if we might consider making some shifts in the first half of the year to allow for 2 meetings in January, 2 meetings in February, especially given that we know that the front half of the year is going to be pretty heavily loaded with finishing things off that are important in the business plan and before silly season starts in the fall. And given that we have no meeting in October or August, I think it might be helpful to make sure that we have opportunities for staff to bring forward items that they want to see completed in this term. So I was going to suggest that we go with January 13th and January 27th, and then February 10th and February 24th. And I did sort of cross-reference it against the multi-faith and the other key events during the calendar year, and I didn't see any. Nothing jumped out at me. I'm happy to make it a motion that is that we approve it as amended, or even just send it back to staff to revise it and check in with their own team. But I just think it would be smart of us to create more opportunities for us to meet in the first half of the year. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Roy-DiClemente. Are there any comments on that? Yeah, Councillor Carruthers.
I agree with Councillor Roy-DiClemente. I remember last year, our January meeting being very full and a lot of stuff needing same-day ratification because it had been such a long wait. And so I think it's important that in order for us to do our due diligence on things, that we have that meeting on January 13th as soon as we can after the break, so that we can get some of those items that staff have been waiting to bring forward to us. So I agree with the amendments that Councillor Roy-DiClemente is making.
Councillor Roy-DiClemente, and then Councillor Leahy, and then I think I might want to say something.
Thank you. Just briefly, I was going to suggest that we use January 20th, which is the existing day for our meeting, to be the workshop that was originally scheduled for the 13th. It was just something I neglected in my initial remarks. Thank you.
Councillor Leahy.
Thank you very much, through you, Acting Mayor Johns. So I was going to bring up the topic of the education workshops. There are 3 that are currently listed, and it's always with the bracketed "if required." And I would like to suggest that they be, except for the one that was just noted on January 13th, that they be made required. And if a councillor decides that they choose not to participate, or they don't think they need that particular education, then they aren't obliged to necessarily attend. But I think there are so many topics and ongoing topics and moving parts out there about the future of East Gwillimbury that I think that we should have 3 education workshops in the new year and potentially suggest another date for a 3rd workshop.
Not sure if that is amendment or you're looking for a comment to have staff comment to reply to that, or what would be your suggestion on that?
My suggestion is that we have 3 education workshops, because there's always continuous learning and opportunities and topics that we need to be more further educated on, and that are helpful for the public as well in terms of business at the town. So I'm saying that we remove the if required, because what's happened in the past is we've put those dates in our schedule, and then a week before or at a council meeting before, it's then removed from our schedule. So if we're planning ahead for these workshops, I think that they should be, we could just remove the if required, and we could find a 3rd date so that we can have that extra meeting in January. And we can still have 3 educational workshops.
Councillor Roy-DiClemente, you have amended, I believe, you moved and amended. Would you be open to that, to create some efficiency in this process here?
We've always left the workshops as a notation. They're in our calendars to be held, because we want to be able to create opportunities for staff to delve into things deeper with us. Given that it's an election year, there may not need to be things that we need to be educated on, simply because people at this table and out in the community may be applying for this position. And so I'm fine to leave it the way we have it. I treat those workshop dates as if they were mandatory, and I hold them in my calendar. If they're not needed, then I get a free day. But other than that, it's important that we keep them in our calendar, and I treat them as such, so that whether they're mandatory or not, I treat them as if they were mandatory, so I don't see the need for it, is the bottom line.
So I have a question through to Director of People and Belongings. I am conscious of the fact that when I look at the calendar, as we all know, staff put an enormous amount of work into these agendas, as we put an enormous amount of work into reading them, and conscious of where the official holiday would fall based upon the closing of the town offices, and ensuring that staff are receiving the appropriate amount of vacation time. Does the amendment to adjust the council meetings in January allow for our staff at the municipality to receive their break in order to set us up, if you understand what I'm saying?
To you, Mr. Chair, I'm not quite sure I'm understanding what you're saying.
Ms. Gandhi, did you, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I'm understanding your question correctly, given the break period and a council meeting happening earlier in January, does that provide for staff enough time to prepare for whatever staff reports are coming to council in early January, seeing that we may be off for a break period? Is that correct? Okay. I would say yes. It's up to council's discretion to determine when the council calendar is, and if we have sufficient notice, then that would provide us with enough time to prepare the staff reports that are due in early January.
Thank you. With that, I would be happy to support your motion, Councillor Roy-DiClemente. Is there any other discussion around the motion that has been moved with the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted, that was as amended, correct?
Correct, yeah. So that takes us through to the next items that are sitting on the agenda, and if folks see the agenda, items J through O, none at this time. There's no business at this time. If we could look to move through to adjournment. And I see that. Wonderful. Thank you, Councillor Crone. All those in favor? Motion carries. Be it resolved that the meeting of Committee of the Whole Council adjourn at 4:04 p.m. Sorry, we already had that. A little bit out of order, but Councillor Crone moved it without me saying the time. We already said in favor. Everybody's on board. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you later.